Today we're going to look at Breath of Fire 2 on the Game Boy Advance. This was originally released for the Super Nintendo in 1995, and in 2002 Capcom decided to port it over to the GBA. Story-wise, this game is relatively simple. The plot takes place about 500 years after the events of the first Breath of Fire. Ryu must prove that his friend Bow did not steal from Trout's mansion. In the process of trying to clear Bow's name, he gets caught up in a quest to save the world. The story may not be anything special by today's standards, but the characters are interesting enough to make you want to keep advancing the story. The original SNES version had a poor translation at times, and that hasn't changed much for this one. They did touch up a few things here and there, but most of it remains the same. This is a shame, since it can be unclear what to do next sometimes due to the shoddy localization. Combat is your standard turn-based system. While every character can use the typical attack, magic, and item commands, each party member also has one unique ability at their disposal. Rand can awaken sleeping characters, Nina can regenerate her ability points, and Ryu can regenerate his health, and so on. Ryu eventually learns some dragon transformation spells which will use all his AP, but also inflict massive damage on the enemy. One really cool feature in this game is the ability to fuse your characters with various shaman found throughout the adventure. These fusions will enhance one or more stats, and some will have other bonus effects as well. Graphically, this game is fairly decent. The Super Nintendo version may not have been the best looking RPG on the system, and that remains true on this GBA port. Towns and dungeons can sometimes be boring to look at, but the character and enemy designs are really good. Also has some nice animation and spell effects in combat. This game was released before the Game Boy Advance SP came out, so Capcom decided to adjust the contrast so it would be easier to see on the non-backlit handheld. The menu really could have used some updating in this port. In most other RPGs, hitting the shoulder buttons lets you cycle through the different characters. Not in here though. You have to hit B to back out of one character's menu so you can go into another's. Not a huge deal, but a more intuitive interface would have been very welcome for a game that was released in 2002. One really nice enhancement for this port is that they doubled the experience and money you get from battle. This makes the game much less grindy, but you will still need to do some extra battles from time to time. One of my favorite things about Breath of Fire 2 is Township. You find an old rundown house very early in the game, and your party decides to help repair it, and it eventually becomes a full town. You can find NPCs from all over the world that have no place to live, and send them to Township. Who you send there is important, because some can open up shops for you that give you access to some great items. There are also some that can do some less useful things, or in some cases, nothing. The music is pretty good for the most part. The only song I didn't care for was My Home Sweet Home, which gets played often in towns. Like most ports of SNES games on the GBA, the sound quality isn't quite as good as the original, but still sounds nice. Breath of Fire 2 is another great RPG for the Game Boy Advance. It may be a little rough around the edges, but it is still a worthy addition to any RPG lover's portable library. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.